There comes a moment in every man's life when the noise fades. The applause stops echoing, the chase for women feels empty, and success, something he once longed for, suddenly tastes like dust. It's in that quiet moment, after the trophies are won and the highs were off, that something old and unsettling rises up from the depths. It's not just sadness, it's ancient. It has no clear face, no rational cause, and no words can explain it away. A longing begins to stir, one that no accomplishment can soothe. And that's when he sees her not a woman in the world, but a shadow in his psyche, the ghost of his first love. She's not flesh and blood. She's the mother inside his unconscious. Carl Jung warned us about this. He called it the mother complex. Not a diagnosis, but a deep psychological structure. It's an invisible inheritance, a kind of mental blueprint. Until a man becomes aware of it, his entire life can become a reaction to a wound he doesn't even know exists. This isn't about blaming your mom. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about realizing that the most dangerous prisons are the ones we carry within. Bars made not of steel, but of expectation, of silence, of a love that felt like it had to be earned by being someone she never asked for, but who you believed she needed. From the very first breath, she was the entire world. Her smile meant safety, her silence punishment. She was the first mirror, and what you saw in her eyes, you took to be the truth of your worth. But Jung tells us something important. The archetype of the mother in your mother. It's a symbol buried deep in the collective unconscious. It represents origin, nourishment, protection. But it also holds the power of engulfment, regression, and dependence if left unexamined. And here's where the fracture begins. Because no real woman, not even your actual mother, can live up to that symbol. When she fails to match that impossible ideal, the child doesn't grieve. He adapts. He builds a new version of himself, designed to earn her attention, to win her love, to survive. That version becomes the mask, and the mask becomes the man. But inside that man, the boy still lives, still aching, still performing, still chasing women, not for love or intimacy, but for a repair. Not to connect, but to rewrite the past, to bring the mother back not as she was, but as he needed her to be. Jung said, "What is not made conscious will be lived as fate," and so the pattern repeats. You fall for women who reflect the same coldness, the same distance, the same emotional absence. You sabotage your success, collapse in the face of feminine disapproval, not because you're weak but because part of you still believes her gaze defines your right to exist. Here's the truth most men never want to face. You cannot become whole until you kill the illusion. You cannot become your own man until you leave your mother's orbit. Jung didn't mean kill literally. He meant separate, differentiate. See her not as a goddess or a villain, but as a human being. Imperfect, flawed, shaped by her own shadows. Because until you do that, you're not loving her. You're worshipping a myth or battling a ghost. Either way, you stay trapped. So, ask yourself this. Are you really living your life? Or are you still trying to prove something to a woman who stopped watching years ago? This isn't self-help. This is soul-level work. Because every time you feel irrational guilt, every time rejection paralyzes you, every time you give too much in a relationship, you're not acting as a man. You're reacting as the boy who still hopes that if he's just good enough, he'll finally be seen. But healing doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself. From finally releasing that sacred expectation, the one that says the woman who gave you life must also give you identity. She can't. That's your work now. A man who hasn't made peace with the inner mother doesn't date, he reenacts. He doesn't lead, he compensates. He doesn't love, he pleads for redemption in disguise. Because the thing that haunts him in a woman, it's a projection. Jung taught that when the unconscious is not made conscious, it spills out onto the world. It paints others with the colors of our own hidden pain, and no projection is more powerful than the one we cast onto the feminine. So, the man seeks her not as a partner, but as a mirror, a substitute mother, one who can complete the story that never ended. He calls it chemistry, but it's not, it's repetition. He says she completes me, but what he really means is, she reminds me of the warmth I never received. She feels like home, like the breast I was denied, like the gaze I never got. Jung called this anima projection when a man's inner feminine, shaped mostly by the first woman in his life, gets cast onto every woman he meets. He doesn't see them, he sees her, the mother, the memory, the unmet need, and it crushed him. Because no woman can carry the weight of an unconscious child. Eventually, she breaks under it. He wants her to save him, to soothe him, to forgive him, but without him ever asking. Because boys don't ask, they just wait, and when she inevitably can't give what even his mother couldn't, the wound reopens. And he feels abandoned all over again, not by her, but by the echo of a need that was never met. This is the cycle Jung warned us about. The man who doesn't retrieve his projections turns every relationship into a ritual reenactment. He spills his soul trying to recover what was never his to begin with the perfect mother who never existed. So the question becomes, how long will you let the past control your gaze? How long will you confuse love with salvation? Because as long as you idolize or demonize the mother within, you are not seeing clearly. You're not seeing her. You're not even seeing you. And until that changes, you will keep mistaking intimacy for rescue, sex for healing, silence for rejection, and abandonment for destiny. Here's the truth Jung left us harsh, raw, and wrapped in fire. The feminine must be reclaimed, not repeated. And for that to happen, a man must descend into his own unconscious. He must face the wound, not to blame, not to punish, but to retrieve his soul. This is the journey Jung called individuation, not perfection, not the shiny version of yourself that the world applauds, but the wholeness that comes from integrating what you've been running from. The forgotten shadows, the silent stories, the childhood vows made in desperation. So what does this mean for you? It means that until you face that primal wound, you will keep asking the world to mother you. And the world won't. It can't. The world will break you until you become your own protector, until you father yourself, until you stop clinging to an ancient loyalty that never served you. This isn't poetic, it's brutal. Because the moment you stop projecting the mother onto women, the silence hits, not because you are alone, but because for the first time you're no longer filling the void with illusions. You're no longer reaching for her to fill it. You're no longer trying to find in women what was lost in childhood. And in that silence, a real man begins to emerge. You think you're stuck because you're lazy. You think you haven't made it because you lack discipline. But what if the truth is darker? What if you're not failing? You're being loyal. Jung observed that the unconscious doesn't operate by logic, it operates by myth. And one of the deepest myths it carries is this: if I grow beyond the suffering of those who raised me, I betray them. That's the invisible vow. The emotional gravity that keeps you orbiting a story that's not even yours. You never chose it, but you live by it. It sounds like this: if my mother suffered, who am I to thrive? If she lived without love, how dare I feel chosen? If she carried pain her whole life, what right do I have to feel free? This isn't reason. This is emotional inheritance. It pulls you back to the psychic atmosphere of your childhood, to the room you outgrew physically but never left psychologically. So, what do? You dim your light just before it gets too bright. You ruin relationships just as they start to feel safe. You seek rejection, not because you want it, but because it feels familiar. Somewhere inside, a voice whispers, if I heal, I leave her behind. Jung called this kind of loyalty archetypal possession. It's when a symbol, an inherited myth, doesn't just influence your life, it inhabits it. You become its voice. You carry her pain like it's sacred. Not out of resentment, not out of choice, but out of devotion. You become her echo, her second chance, her silent promise. Not to fix her but to prove something, that you could succeed where she fell, that you could turn her sorrow into meaning. But here's the paradox that breaks most men: you cannot honor your mother by suffering with her. You can only honor her by evolving beyond her. And that's not betrayal, that's liberation. Because the purpose of a son is not to live in orbit around the mother's grief. It's to step out of it, to carry forward what was unlived, to become the branch that breaks the cycle without severing the roots. That is maturity. That is what it means to become an adult not just by age, but by spirit. So, if you find yourself sabotaging success, if you find yourself choosing smallness over greatness, if you shrink in the presence of peace, joy, or love, ask yourself the question that most men are too afraid to face: who am I betraying by being happy? And wait, the answer won't shout. It will come like a whisper, and when it does, you'll know exactly where the wound still lives. But you need to hear this, right now. Her pain is not your destiny. Yes, she gave you life, but what you do with that life, that's your offering. That's your prayer. That's your liberation. You are not here to repeat her story. You are here to finish it, not by carrying her sorrow, but by transcending it. So that when you one day look in the mirror, you don't see her sadness staring back. You see your sovereignty, yourself, unbroken, unborrowed. There's a kind of loneliness no one talks about. Not the loneliness of being without someone, but the loneliness of being without yourself, of having abandoned yourself so long ago. You forgot what your own warmth feels like. He's still there, that boy, curled up in the corner of your psyche, unseen, unheard, waiting for someone to say, "I see you. I will not leave you again." Jung warned, what we refuse to face doesn't go away, it becomes fate. And the cruelest fate of all is to become the presence you once needed but never had, not toward others, toward yourself. You tell yourself to toughen up when you need tenderness. You keep pushing when you're broken. You laugh off your own pain. You punish your emotions, even though you'd comfort them in anyone else. You become the same voice that once left you aching. You become your own cold mother, your own missing father, your own silent witness. This is the final chapter of the mother complex, emotional self-abandonment. It's no longer just about what she did. It's about how you now do it to yourself. The same tone, the same silence, the same shame, but now, in your own voice. Jung spoke of the inner mother, an archetype that, when wounded, sits quietly at the center of a man's life. She governs his worth, his choices, his relationships, his safety. So, what do most men do? They run, they perform, they drown in distractions: work, women, noise. But wherever they go, the same question follows: why do I feel empty when I've done everything right? And the answer is this: because you left yourself to go win a love that was never yours to earn, to go earn worth that was always yours by birth. You stopped checking in, stopped asking, what do I need? You abandoned your joy, your softness, your intuition. Because somewhere along the line, you learned this: your needs were too much. Your sadness was inconvenient, your vulnerability was weakness. But here's what Jung would tell you now, and you need to hear this not with your mind, but with your bones. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who you were told to be, not who she needed you to be, not who you had to become to survive, but who you were before the mask, before the role, before the adaptation. To return to that man, you don't need more strength. You need compassion, not pity, not softness for the sake of comfort, but the kind of fierce love it takes to sit with your pain, not fix it, not silence it. Just be with it. That is self-fathering. That is healing. That is reclaiming the inner child who never stopped waiting. Now comes the hardest part. You've seen the wound. You've named the silence. But now, you must release the spell. Because that's what the mother complex is, a spell. Not cast by her alone, but by your own psyche, your unmet needs, your archetypal longing. Carl Jung didn't speak of healing in simple terms. He spoke of it as a death and rebirth. To leave the mother doesn't mean to stop loving her. It means to stop worshiping her, to stop letting her pain shape your identity. So, what does breaking the spell look like? It means you stop chasing women who remind you of her wounds. It means you stop proving you're worthy of love by choosing those who withhold it. It means you stop reenacting the emotional starvation you grew up with, hoping this time the story will end differently. It won't, because no one can give you the love you never gave yourself. The woman won't save you. Success won't validate you. Even healing won't reward you. Only you can unmake the myth, and that's terrifying. Because to step into your own sovereignty means you lose the excuse. You can no longer say, I am this way because of her. You must now say, I am this way because I chose not to change. That's when the grief arrives. Not just grief for what happened, but grief for all the years you waited. Waited to be seen, waited to be chosen, waited to be freed by something outside of you. You grieve the life you abandoned while trying to earn a love that was never whole to begin with. This grief isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that the spell is breaking, and in that breaking, there is space for you to finally meet yourself. Not the mask, not the fixer, not the nice guy or the warrior, but the man beneath it all. The one who still cries, the one who still hopes. The one who, beneath the armor, is tender. Young warned, if you do not make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. This is that moment, the moment you stop calling dysfunction destiny, the moment you stop calling self-abandonment discipline, the moment you stop calling unavailability love, because here's what no one told you, the mother you needed may never come. But the man you're meant to become, he's still waiting. He's not waiting in your next relationship. He's not hiding in success, status, or spiritual bypassing. He's buried beneath the very pain you've been avoiding. And when you turn toward him fully, you meet the part of you that knows who you are, knows what you deserve, knows how to hold your own heart without outsourcing it to anyone else. This isn't about blame, it's about ending the cycle. Because if you don't, you'll pass it on, to your partner, to your children, to everyone who gets close enough to feel the absence of the love you never gave yourself. But if you face it, if you choose truth over comfort, if you choose healing over hiding, then you become dangerous. Not in a violent way, but in a sacred way. Because a man who has faced his mother wound is no longer ruled by it. He does not seek to be saved. He seeks to serve. He does not beg for love. He embodies it. And he does not fear the silence because he knows who he is without the noise. This is the end of the myth, and the beginning of a man, not just any man. A man who does not run from his story. A man who rewrites it, that is the masculine reborn. Not in opposition to the feminine, but in devotion to truth. You are not broken, you are becoming. Not despite the wound, but because of it. Because some men are not shaped by love, they are shaped by what they had to become in its absence. And if that's you, then listen carefully. Your pain is not your enemy. It is your initiation. Welcome home. Becoming the father you never had, so now that the spell is broken, what comes next? This is where most men get lost, because once you see the mother wound, once you feel the grief, once you stop chasing women to fill it, you're left with a blank space, a silence. A question no one else can answer for you. Who am I without the wound? And here's the hard truth. The world doesn't care that you've been wounded. It only cares what you do with it. Carl Jung knew this. That's why he said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming who you truly are, it means fathering yourself. Because if the inner mother is your emotional foundation, then the inner father is your structure, your direction, your protection. And for many men, that father never showed up. Or he was passive, or he was cruel, or simply absent. So, you were raised by your mother's moods and your own sense of shame. But now it's your turn to become the father. The father who says, I see your pain. I won't mock it. I know you're tired. Let's rest. You don't have to prove anything to be loved. You made a mistake. You're still worthy. You're not just becoming a man. You're becoming the container for your own life. Not a container of perfection, but a container of presence. This is the moment your masculinity stops being a performance. It becomes a posture, a groundedness, a stillness, a clarity that no woman, no status, no applause can give you. This is the Father within, and when he awakens, everything changes. You no longer chase unavailable women, you recognize them as mirrors of your past. You no longer confuse guilt with love, you see guilt as an echo, not a guide. You stop trying to be good and you start trying to be whole. Because here's the great irony, healing the mother wound requires the father you never had, and that father is you. But this work isn't glamorous. It's not a morning routine, it's not a checklist. It's the daily decision to show up for yourself in moments you were once abandoned. You wake up and feel the ache and you stay. You get rejected and you don't collapse. You feel grief and you don't numb it. Instead, you listen, you hold space, you tell that younger part of you, I know this hurts, but we're not going to run anymore. I've got you now. That's not weakness. That's true strength, and the moment you start living that way, you stop seeking love from the feminine to heal the masculine. You let women be women, not mothers, not redeemers, not saviors. You meet them as equals, whole to whole. And for the first time you feel real intimacy, not based on trauma bonding, not based on performance, but based on truth. Because you're no longer trying to earn your place in the world. You know it's already yours, and you stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. You stop apologizing for your power, your clarity, your peace. You speak with a voice that's no longer borrowed from pain. You found your own. This is the beginning of real freedom, the kind that doesn't come from escaping pain, but from integrating it so deeply, it becomes your wisdom. So, if you're here, if you're feeling lost, if everything familiar has collapsed, good, because that collapse, that silence, it's where the new man is born. The man who doesn't just survive the wound, he transcends it. By doing what no one else could do for him, he becomes the father of his own soul, and that is sacred. The return home. So here you are, not the man you pretended to be, not the boy waiting for rescue, but something new, something ancient. A man who has faced the silence, who has stopped running, who has buried no more ghosts, and started raising himself. You've stopped asking the world to mother you. You've stopped asking women to heal what they never broke. You've stopped bending under guilt that was never yours to carry. And now, you stand on unfamiliar ground. You're not chasing, proving, performing. You're not begging to be seen, or trying to earn rest. You've remembered something you forgot long ago, that your life is yours. Not hers, not theirs. Yours. And with that knowing comes the quiet revolution, not a loud rebellion against your past, but a deep integration of it. Carl Jung called this individuation, the path of wholeness. The return to the self beneath the adaptations. Not by erasing your history, but by transforming it. Because everything you lived through, every ache, every abandonment, every echo, it wasn't meaningless, it was the making of you, not the mask you wore, but the truth beneath it. You see now, the mother wasn't the enemy. She was the mirror. The pain wasn't the end. It was the invitation, and love, real love. It was never something you had to earn. It was the ground you were meant to stand on, but you had to build it for yourself. That's what you're doing now. Every time you speak your truth without apology, every time you say no without guilt, every time you choose stillness over chaos, you're building a foundation inside that no one can take. And that foundation, it changes everything. Because when a man stops asking for permission to exist, he becomes dangerous, not in a violent way, but in a luminous way. He's not controlled by shame, not addicted to approval, not haunted by his past. He walks through life with presence. He leads without dominance. He loves without neediness. He becomes the man he was always meant to be, before the wound, before the mask, before the endless search for enough. This is the sacred work of the modern man. To stop living out someone else's grief, to stop serving an identity he never chose, to stop mistaking pain for loyalty, and to finally come home, to himself. So, if you're watching this, not just with your eyes, but with your soul, you already know this is your path. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. Because something inside you is tired of the performance, tired of chasing, tired of confusing silence with peace and guilt with love. That part of you, it's ready, ready to lay the burden down, ready to stop protecting a mother who never asked you to suffer, ready to stop proving your worth to ghosts, and start building a life that's yours. One breath at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of self-respect at a time. You are not broken, you are never broken. You are surviving a story that wasn't yours, and now, you're writing your own. You are not your mother's pain. You are not your father's absence. You are not the echo of a house that never felt safe. You are the man who walked through the fire and chose not to pass it on. You are the cycle breaker, the root healer, the architect of a new lineage. And one day, if you choose to become a father, your children will thank you, not because you were perfect, but because you were present, because you didn't run from the wound, you turned toward it, and reclaimed your life. And now, you walk forward, not because you're healed, but because you're healing, not because the past disappears, but because it no longer defines you. This is your work now. This is your task. This is your gift. And if no one has told you yet, I'm proud of you, not because you achieved, not because you proved anything, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. And in doing so, you came home, not to her, not to them, to you. Now go live like it. Like, share, subscribe,